Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about all the characters in the new Hawkeye TV show. In this video, I'm basically going to be going over a lot of new characters introduced to the MCU, a lot of their comic origins and stuff that they did that they haven't really shown in the show so far. This video is coming out right before episode 3 and we just got introduced to Echo, so I'll be focusing on her a lot more in this episode, but there's a lot of other characters that are super interesting that we don't know a lot about in the show. Before we get into it, if you guys are new in here and you guys enjoy my content like these movie reviews, trailer reactions, and all these informational videos, make sure that subscribe and turn notifications on so you don't miss any time I upload a new video or I go live. Both always taking more time. Let's get into it. So starting it off with the character we recently got introduced to at the end of episode 2, basically as a tease character, Maya Lopez, aka Echo. In the comics, she's really famous for saying this quote, "My name is Maya Lopez. I'm not sure if I'm still that person. The newspapers called me Echo. That's what I feel like, an echo, and this is my story." Echo is actually a super interesting character, and personally the reason I know her is through Daredevil, and I think this is super interesting because we also got new release information about her show coming up on Disney Plus. On Disney Plus Day, we did get an announcement for her show, well, an official announcement, because technically we've had rumors for her character and her getting a spin-off show, but it's never 100% been confirmed. We've had the logo, which is on screen right now, as well as rumored characters such as Kingpin, which is 100% tied to her in the comics, as well as Daredevil, who's 100% tied to her in the comics, to appear in the show alongside her. But now to get to the comic origins of Echo. Echo is a Native American who was born deaf, and she was initially placed in special education, but after using her skills to duplicate a song from a rehearsal at school, she was placed into the gifted section, and she particularly enjoyed art and dance. But where her story gets super interesting is when we figure out what her father was really doing behind the scenes, and her father was secretly a mob enforcer working for Kingpin. Now we already know Kingpin is very heavily rumored to be in Hawkeye. Number one, the biggest hint is the actor who played Kingpin in the Daredevil Netflix series, Vincent D'Onofrio, tweeted about it. The biggest hint is that he retweeted an account saying that he would show up in episode 5 of Hawkeye, but along with that, he's also been retweeting a lot of Hawkeye things, and he never really did that for any of the past shows like WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier, Loki, What If. He's really invested into the show on social media, which also just proves that he's probably in this show.
I would like to talk about Echo. Why was Hawkeye the perfect place to bring her into the MCU?
That is such a great question that I wish I can answer.
I get it. I get it. Okay,
we need to speak after you've seen the rest of the episode.
Now, you guys might have already seen the iconic photo of Echo with like the white handprint on her face, and where this originates from is one day Kingpin ordered that Maya's father should be murdered, and he reached out to Maya, leaving a bloody handprint on her face. Then she was taken by Fisk, who was impressed with her talents and had her sent to the best school money could buy, and as a result she became very talented in many artistic fields. Now in the comics, the way that Echo and Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, are introduced is in one of Fisk's plots to destroy Daredevil. He arranged for Matt to meet her, knowing Matt was lonely after the recent death of Karen Page, especially just in that run of the comics. We know that Karen Page isn't dead in the Daredevil universe, so I don't think they'll be adapting that specific storyline, but overall it's just super interesting. Then Kingpin went on to trick Maya and convince her that Daredevil killed her father, and having watched videos of Bullseye and Daredevil fighting, she proved more than a match for Daredevil. Maya then created the identity of Echo based on her ability to copy motions and action that she sees, and then she fought Daredevil. He did not know why she was suddenly attacking him, and she was shocked to learn that it was Matt she was targeting. Matt was able to explain himself, and angry at the deliberate deception, Maya then brutally shot Kingpin, which left him blind for a big amount of time. Now I haven't read many of these characters' comics, and overall I'm just not that big of a comic reader, but one thing that really stood out to me from Maya's character, aka Echo, is that she does take up the Ronin mantle for a long period of time, and that's super interesting knowing that the Ronin costume and basically the whole identity of Ronin has been a big part of the show so far, and we're only 2 episodes in. But now I want to move on to the next and probably most mysterious character in the entire Hawkeye series so far, Jacques Duquesne. So we know that in the show so far, he's basically been at the black market auction house, and we all think that he killed his father Armand. At least that's what I think, since we saw him take the sword from the black market auction, all that kind of stuff. Everything, in my opinion, leads to him being there the night that Armand died. Even if he wasn't the one who killed him, the butterscotch shows that he was there at the end of episode 2, I think it was. So it's interesting to see that Jaquise right now is the main suspect for Armand's death, but nevertheless in the comics he is a swordsman, and that's also shown in episode 2 of Hawkeye. Jaquise, aka the Swordsman, is a superb athlete and has an excellent unarmed combat rating. He's also a master of the bladed weapons and most notably all forms of the sword, and when it comes to pure swordsmanship, he may be unequaled, but physical strength wise, he's not a superhuman or anything like that, so it would make sense for him to be a villain in this show, specifically because so far what we've seen, everything is really grounded, so it makes sense that if he is somehow the villain or the big bad of this show itself, it will make sense that it's him because he could relate to the fighting style of Kate and Clint. Next up, I want to talk about Lucky the dog. Now this character again is pretty interesting. It's just another side character in this show, but after doing more research about Lucky, I really like his background and his backstory in the comics because it's more tied to Clint and the Tracksuit Mafia, which we did see in episodes 1 and 2, specifically more than Kate herself, but he ends up more on Kate's side or with Kate for more time. But just the whole origin story of Lucky is really interesting to me. So before being called Lucky, his name was actually Arrow, and he originally belonged to Ivan Benones in the Tracksuit Mafia, but Clint Barton showed him some kindness. Arrow repaid Hawkeye by attacking one of Ivan's men, who then shot at him. After Arrow saved Hawkeye's life, Ivan's men beat him and threw him onto oncoming traffic, but he barely survived. Hawkeye rushed him to a veterinary hospital, and Arrow made it through the surgeries, but lost the use of his left eye, as we see in the show. Hawkeye then took ownership of the dog and renamed him Lucky. Lucky then came to live with Clint and became a friend and companion to him and to the younger Hawkeye, Kate Bishop. In the comics, Clint and Kate basically have some sort of splitting off, and Lucky decides to go with Kate. Lucky isn't a super crazy like being, he's not like a super pet or anything like that, but he's an interesting character to me because there's one comic book where the entire comic book is told from Lucky's perspective. So if Hawkeye has a season 2 or maybe even one of the episodes in this season, what if it's told from Lucky's perspective? I feel like that could be super interesting. And what if it's a backstory talking about the Tracksuit Mafia and Clint Barton's history, since Lucky was there technically in the comics? I don't know, I just think it could be super interesting. But nevertheless, I want to move on to talking about the next character, Elanor Bishop, aka Kate Bishop's mom. And this character is super interesting to me because after doing more research after watching Hawkeye episodes 1 and 2, her character is very different in the comics than she is in this show, at least so far. In the beginning of episode 1, we see their husband or her husband die. Specifically in the comics, Elanor allegedly died while visiting Boulder, Colorado, leaving Derek Bishop to raise their daughters. However, later in the comics, she was revealed to be alive, like I said before, directing the activities of Kate's main nemesis, Madame Mask. And another thing that's super interesting about her character is that she's not only in the Hawkeye comic run, but she's also in the West Coast Avengers comic run, which is something that Jeremy Renner did mention in a press conference.
He was the head of West Coast Avengers. Like, I would personally love to see him be in that sort of Captain America leader role, actually, which I think he would succeed in, like calling the shots and do these type of things, right? Great. As a quarterback, instead of like being more of like a wide receiver, these type of things, right? Like that would be really interesting, I think, to see him do.
I don't think that's a direct tie, but it's just interesting that she's part of that comic run, and Jeremy Renner specifically mentioned that. But nevertheless, why I think this is so interesting is that Derek Bishop is the one who died in this show early on. So what if he comes back as the villain or as some secret identity person? And overall, I'm just excited to see what they do with Elanor Bishop because her character is fairly interesting to me, and I do think that if they do it right, they could honestly blame Armand's death on Elanor, or Elanor could actually be the one who murdered Armand and she's blaming it on Jaquise, just because people, or I guess the writers at Marvel, know that we're gonna believe that it's Jaquise because all the ties lead to him, but it could be Elanor behind all of this. But yeah guys, that's it for this video. I know it was a little bit of a weird one, but a lot of the characters have been really mysterious in the Hawkeye show so far. We don't know much about a lot of them, so I wanted to give you guys this information. Again, this isn't one for one what's gonna happen in the Hawkeye TV show, but this is a lot of their comic past, and specifically Echo I think is going to be a big part of not only this show, but also she's getting her whole own show with possibly Daredevil and most likely Kingpin, as they are really important to her origin story. Nevertheless, I hope you guys enjoy this video. Again, if you enjoy these informative videos or my movie reviews, trailer reactions, all that sorts of content, make sure to subscribe button and turn notifications on so you don't miss any time I upload a new video or I go live. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.